Hey everybody, my name is Okrins and I'd like to thank you for joining me here in the Rec Room, your eclectic one-stop shop for playlist suggestions. For those of you who didn't see my introduction last week, I'm an LA-based composer and music producer with an online past that's a little too long. Some days ago I put out a video announcing my plans to produce a weekly music recommendation series showcasing songs that I like, and here we are today. True to my word, I have 10 cool tracks that I'd like to share with you in this video. These songs are not ordered in terms of quality or related to each other in terms of title, artist, genre, date of release, or location. They're just songs I listened to the other week and enjoyed. Let's dive in so I can talk at you even more. I'm kicking off this list with an album opener that makes a very good introduction to any playlist, Flake, in parentheses, composed by the one-man synth jazz spectacle James Zoo, and featuring the Metropole Orkest conducted by Jules Buckley. James Zoo is a man named Michiel van Dinter hailing from 's-Hertogenbosch in the Netherlands, and the Metropole Orkest is a Dutch jazz and pop orchestra that has collaborated with such diverse musical acts in the past as Ella Fitzgerald and Editing and Post. The album this appears on is called Melkweg, named after a popular Dutch concert hall in which it was recorded. Melkweg consists mostly of orchestrations of tunes James Zoo had already released by himself on his 2016 album Fool. If you haven't heard that, it's also worth a listen. I found Fool to be an album full of fun and playful melodic motifs, but occasionally marred on some songs by an overabundance of empty space in its arrangements. Those arrangements are fleshed out a lot more on this album, and that is no more beneficial than on this opening cut, Flake. It is a work of many phases and movements even for its 7.5-minute runtime, which is a plus for me because I'm all about interesting song structures. Here we see a quiet synthesizer arpeggio gradually build into loud, majestic chord stabs accentuated by the timbres of various instruments doubling and adding texture to the synths. Along the way there are a few real grooves in there too, sparse, to be sure, but saved from being boring by the acoustic instruments backing them up. The percussive crashes and space in the concert hall allowed the music to take on a depth it could never have achieved in the studio. Altogether it's a triumphant fusion of the organic and the artificial that's definitely worth a listen. Alright, I've already spent far too much time on that one, so let's keep on moving. The next track on our list is by an artist receiving lots of well-deserved fanfare of late, the Japanese-born British singer-songwriter Rina Sawa. It's called Comme des Garçons, Like the Boys, and came out just a bit earlier this year as an advanced single off of the upcoming album Sawa to be released in April. Sawayama's music is heavily rooted in early 2000s pop, but the experimental production with which she surrounds herself, often by frequent collaborator Clarence Clarity, one of my favorite artists on the scene right now, make her singles sound ahead of their time. Her lyrics here are simple but not patronizing, a message perhaps tinged with a little well-placed snark that boys don't have a monopoly on confidence or success. The vocals are carried by a uniquely grungy lo-fi bass line that underpins the whole track and immediately caught me off guard the first time I heard it. The whole thing is volume boosted almost to the point of distortion and gives the track a feeling of instability that keeps you listening. Up next is a track by Philadelphia noise pop / indie rock outfit The Spirit of the Beehive, the opener Nail I Couldn't Bite off of their 2018 album Hypnic Jerks. This came to me as a Spotify recommendation a few weeks ago, and from what my friend has told me, Spotify recommends this to a lot of people, so you may have already heard it. Too bad though, I want to talk about it anyways because my god, this is such a good varied album and such a good opener to boot. The track is a microcosm of the whole album's approach to rock music. Throw everything and the kitchen sink at the wall and somehow make it all stick. Heavy sample-based production leads into an assortment of catchy riffs with slightly lo-fi production, what sounds like a slew of effects pedals. Soft and loud sections alternate, offering up 80s-influenced drums and harmonized la-la-las out of the 60s it turns. I don't really listen to lyrics as much as I should in music, but looking them up I was surprised to find kind of a moving take on addiction and how it hurts relationships. Sometimes I recommend really niche music, but this should appeal to just about anyone who likes some flavor of rock music. It's that good. Next we move on to something completely different both in terms of structure and sound. Data Recovery, a twinkling and pulsating experimental future-based number from Brussels-based producer and DJ Hypna. This song has not actually yet been released. It drops on the 14th of this month, but it's available for streaming and pre-order on Hypna's Bandcamp, which I'll link just like everything else in the description to this video. I actually found this by sifting through a number of new releases on Bandcamp until I found something I liked, which is admittedly a laborious process, but occasionally yields great discoveries. This song is notable in its apparent stasis. It features one stuttering synth groove on one simple chord progression that builds pretty simply over the course of this song. But there's a lot more to it than that underneath the surface. Occasional rhythmic stabs and drum hits make it verge on danceable at times. Swirling, shifting metallic noises that sound like a sword swinging through the air border each repetition of the main theme. And there's such a beautiful control of ebb and flow in the filters and effects placed throughout this song that it never tires me out. If you like off-kilter dance floor tracks with an electroacoustic touch, this one's for you. Following that, we return to an ever-present haze of guitars in Starting Over, the third track from an eponymous 2007 extended play released by San Francisco Shu Gazers, LSD, and The Search for God. These folks are not exactly the most prolific studio artists, releasing only 2 EPs over the course of the 14-plus years they've been together. They're still touring around the West Coast, though, and if you live in the area and are lucky, maybe you can catch a show. While this band does wear their influences from foundational groups in the genre like My Bloody Valentine or Ride proudly on their sleeves, they are made somewhat more unique by their ear for sentimental melodies and their joint male and female vocals on some tracks. This recording is somewhat lo-fi, and I suspect purposefully so, as vocalists Andy List and Sophia Campbell croon about the aftermath of a failed relationship. Watery and dreamlike guitars climax into a fuzzed-out chorus section that somehow feels like an old friend even the first time you hear it. Here you're lost in a reverb-laden soup that does obscure the subtleties of sounds but amplifies the staying power of the most memorable chords. 2 thumbs up from me. Waking up from our dream, we are presented with a much more energetic tune, The Friend Song by Spanish power pop duo Yanis off of their second full-length album, Just Calm Down. Yanis is a simple outfit. Frontwoman Elena Nieto is armed with only her voice and a guitar, backed up on drums and vocal harmonies by Martín Muñoz. This song is yet another album opener and is a pretty short and sweet pop-punk number. The band's 2 members harmonize expertly well, and, just as many punk bands, are clearly well-practiced in playing fast and loud. The song is organized around several lyrical refrains that seem to be rejecting romantic advances, alternating between a frenetic verse and a heavier halftime chorus. I think it's this seamless variation in tempo that keeps me coming back to the song week after week. But it's just fun, and I don't know if me analyzing it to death can do it any justice. Just give it a spin. People who came of age at the right time in the 80s may recall my next pick, I'll Be Good by Renee and Angela off of their 1985 album Street Called Desire. Let me address the elephant in the room. This album cover design is ugly as sin and nearly turned me off to the album when it came up to me as a recommended song. Nevertheless, much as with the proverbial book, you're not going to want to judge the song by that. This is an exquisitely danceable tune whose sound has been refreshed by the 80s nostalgia that began in full force last decade and shows no signs of slowing down in the music industry to this day. The occasional funk guitar line is incredibly in the pocket and contrasts well with the squelchy, adorably sloppy bass line and synth bells in the chorus. The sparseness of the arrangement allows the echoes of the central vocal refrain to really ring out in between the tried-and-true duet-verse trade-offs. With pristine production and maybe the perfect dancing tempo, what's not to like here? Sometimes simplicity is where it's at. Another pretty abrupt transition brings us to a much lesser-known act and the second Philly band on this list. They are gutting a body of water with the song 8 Ball off of the full-length Destiny XL, which came out the day before I turned 23 last October. Led by Doug Dulgarian, this band's output ranges from sample-based beats to really noisy shoegaze. This song is certainly of the latter category. 8 Ball is a touch more lo-fi than the other rock songs we've covered on this list and conjures up a bit more unease in the listener with its more mathy riffs and abstract poetry. The song starts on a repeated riff that builds into a cacophonous climax, only to abruptly transition into a slower, more methodical section as Doug muses on what are presumably memories of a past relationship. It's just a slice of good DIY music, helped along by a healthy sense of compositional risk and interesting instrumentation. Our penultimate pick comes from Madagascar's capital of Antananarivo, the pop-rock trio Cristel with the song Ratake off of their 2018 debut EP, TNM. While this EP was overall a little hit or miss for me personally, it's clear that this band's somewhat off-kilter and expressive sound shows lots of promise for the future. Much of this potential is bound up in the versatile voice of singer and bandleader Cristel Rattry, whom you're likely to find very lightly intoning melodies one moment and unleashing a very respectable rasp the next. While my efforts to understand her message are undercut somewhat by the fact that I can't speak more than 2 or 3 words of Malagasy, I still really enjoy her intensity on Ratake. It's a song with a pretty standard verse-chorus structure, the verses of which sound more playful while the choruses are fierce and catchy. Helped along by the clean production and propulsive drumming, this is a pretty nice slice of pop. I can't wait to hear what the band does in the future. Our final pick is probably my favorite totally new discovery of the past week. Québécois math rock / jangle pop group Dories, who have not actively released new music since about 2016, just dropped an EP compiling some old songs that they had sitting around from years ago, appropriately entitled Old Songs. The first of these songs is an excellent tune called Pool Form. It features some pretty well-developed 7/4 time signature grooves, alongside mocking second-person lyrics sung in a baritone voice very reminiscent of the singers of a number of post-punk bands. For me, it strikes the balance perfectly between variation and repetition. It can be very easy for math rock riffs to get old, but this band fights against it expertly with the occasional minor melodic tweak and variation in volume. Dories have achieved a great song with a cool robotic affect here. Here's hoping they might consider another new release at some point in the future. And that's it, my long list of top tracks for the first full week of February 2020. Thanks so much for tuning in. Feel free to check out the description below for links to all these songs and more, and don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy hearing me talk at you like this. If you want me to listen to a track that you think I should discuss, or have feedback on this very new and still evolving series, drop it in the comments or send me a message. If you want to listen to my music, and gosh, who wouldn't? Go to okrents.com or search my name on your favorite streaming platform. Once again, this has been The Rec Room with your host, Okrents. Until next time, have a good one.